My name is Babita Basak. I've been in HR profession for last 18 to 19 years. Have been into HR generalist, HR specialist, combination of both, primarily in the financial industry. Um, Three primary organizations in the career, which is HDFC Life, Citi, and now Edelweiss. The topic of inclusion and women, particularly, is very close to my heart, and Murali knows that very well. We have been interacting quite a few on that. Um, and at Edelweiss, I think my role scope more than the strategic hiring. It is also into employee experience, HR technology, and strategic HR at a group level, which comprises of all the different businesses around investment banking, consumer, insurance, and enterprise functions. So that's about me, Ankita and Murali.
My name is Prachi Jain, and I have, like Babita, over 2 decades of experience as an HR professional. I started my career in sales, and then I did talent acquisition for a while, and have been in generalist HR for the last 5 years, looking after end-to-end HR for my organization, which is Macquarie Global Services. And I have been with this firm for about 10 years now, looking after right from talent acquisition to talent management, performance management, employee relations, engagement, the entire employee life cycle. I'm also a passionate D&I champion for my organization, and I've curated a number of programs for the firm and worked with a number of leaders in sensitizing towards inclusion. So that's very briefly about me, and then over back to you.
I've been kind of doing a lot of these interactions over a period of time, and I think one of the biggest setbacks which this pandemic brought me was the fact that you kind of got locked inside your house and predominantly your room, and which effectively meant, at least for the first couple of months, absolutely no interactions apart from day in and day out speaking to your colleagues at office. And that's when I think people and organizations like you started doing these sessions online, because life doesn't come to a standstill just because a virus decided to attack us. So very, very thankful for these opportunities, because it gives you a very different perspective. So a little bit about myself. I think if you've chosen people with very similar years of experience, my experience also is a little over 2 decades. But I guess one difference between myself, Babita, and Prachi is I don't have an HR background. I am an accountant by qualification, so that's how I started my career. So from finance and accounting, then I moved to operations, and then I very consciously landed in HR. It was not an accident. It was a very carefully chosen phase of my career. But then when I kind of look back, I think the best phase of my career, I would say, being in HR, and I'm sure my co-panelists will agree. So the last 4 years is when I kind of made that drift into HR, and currently I head HR for Standard Chartered Global Business Services for the location Chennai. So that's my current role. So pretty much the entire gamut of HR, primarily business partnering and the strategic planning for a lot of businesses, and the rest of it rolls into my portfolio. So thank you, Murali. Thank you once again.
Fantastic. I think, thanks for your introductions, all of you, right? I think maybe, to start with, just wanted to understand, right? And, there's a pandemic, and then maybe, I don't want to say post-pandemic yet, but we're in the middle of that. But I think we are in the middle too long now, right? Almost like 7-8 months, the pandemic things are going on. So what typical, kind of changes you have seen already in talent management, or maybe going to see over the period of time, any specific things you observed, maybe start from anyone? Maybe Prachi, you want to quickly start?
Sure, Murali. I think great question. Talent management is obviously an important topic. Our biggest assets, whether in a pandemic or over it, is continues to be our people. So really, that is the focus that the organization has had and will continue to, because that is the assets that we have. We recently actually came out with our new purpose statement, which is empowering our people to innovate and invest for a better future. And that is really the core of what we do. In terms of the processes, we saw, a sudden spike, as soon as we started to work remotely. Fortunately, we were slightly better prepared than a lot of other organizations, because having experience in the Asian market, we knew remote working will be the norm, and we quickly moved to it before even the lockdown happened. And then really the challenge was, how do we onboard the new joiners who had never come to our office, who had not been on our network? And that's where I saw, we took a human-centric approach to the whole program. We got the teams together, collaborated very well, and ensured that we onboarded every single joiner on the day that they were supposed to. In fact, one of the new joiners came up to me and said, she was very apprehensive earlier that we may defer the joining, that a lot of organizations were doing. But in that sense, we were well prepared, and we didn't miss the bus, and we got a lot of good feedback on LinkedIn. Thank God for that. With that, but the challenges are also equally there. How do you embed the culture of the organization when someone is working virtually? They are not able to observe and mirror the behavior they would get an opportunity for in an office environment. There are obviously challenges around data and privacy. There are challenges of having a subpar IT infrastructure at home, delineation of work and home, which sort of blurs the whole thing. And, we are hearing stories of fatigue setting in, and people are, so looking after their mental well-being. And, just as there have been opportunities where things have gone well, there are obviously challenges that we continue to face when it comes to our talent. And I think the learning from this time will take us ahead, but we are in for interesting and challenging times ahead.
Fantastic. I think it looks like you guys started doing a better onboarding and then also used a lot of social media presence around it, right, Prachi? Fantastic. So Jain, anything specific from your firm point of view?
Yeah, I think in addition to what Prachi just mentioned, this is a time when you also go to campuses for hiring, right? So we did have that entire batch of students we had chosen to do internship as an example. So all of that, the first fear, like Prachi said, in the minds of a lot of people was, did everything just stop because, we have this problem. But then thanks to technology and the willingness of people to think out of the box, I think all of this is now beautifully done virtually. Okay. So virtual onboarding, connecting all the way to our CEO who is sitting in London, and all of that seamless. So for a student to come get onboarded to an organization and then have a conversation with the CEO amidst all of what is happening, all of the chaos, I think that is, that's thanks to technology, I will say. All of these things have become possible. But I guess like an ECG, Murali, now people are starting to feel that, that stress. And that's something which I don't think anyone will differ from an opinion perspective, because that is now starting to set in. One, because none of us are used to this way of working. We are all, social animals. We want to be around people. And there's a lot of things which actually get done when you're in a team and when you have those conversations and interactions. So that is a big, big void. Now, how much ever we have technology, I don't think it can actually fill for those gaps. And only time will tell how this is going to evolve, because directionally now organizations are looking at a different methodology of work. So the future workplace is going to change. So given that scenario, how we're going to address these, the mental well-being and all of that will largely shift the roles of people like us in HR. So those will be, probably the buzzwords going forward.
Correct. Okay, so Babita, on any specific pointers in terms of, same thing, talent management pre-COVID, on the middle of COVID and next, mostly I think expecting to be post-COVID soon, right? So
I hope so.
yes.
So as you rightly said that, and I think there is a agreed realization that COVID has become a catalyst for all kind of transformation that is happening, right? Whether we are reimagining, whether we are redesigning, all this, this crisis has, given a catalyst. I know Prachi and Jayanthi, they spoke about hiring bit of it. I'll just take it a little, wider from a talent management perspective. What it is leading to is really rethinking employee journey from the time that person is a candidate and seeing the job advert and experiencing that entire process, and from the time onboarding and then performance, learning, engagement, well-being, so and so forth, including even exit. So this whole employee journey, keeping experience in mind of the employee, is something that needs to be and would be rethought, and people have started working around it. There's a lot of work which is happening on each facet of it. Second thing is, we are talking about new ways of working. We are talking about work being changed. One thing is also which is changing is working relationship. In a virtual environment and in a hybrid workplace where half of the people, some people are working from home, some people are in the field, and some people in the office, probably essential services. This interaction between working relationship with your stakeholders outside, customers, your internal stakeholders, team members, that is taking a different meaning altogether. Third thing is culture. And that is a very important part. Prachi talked about purpose, and we are, everybody is saying that any organization which is becoming people first organization or taking the mantra of people first organization is, striding towards thriving through this crisis. And that is the core of everything when it comes to even talent management. And in that purpose, your well-being, your inclusion, your diversity, belongings, because the challenges are very different. We used to talk about these things pre-COVID as well. So what has changed during COVID? Virtualization, technology, interactions, consumer behavior, business models, these things are changing. These manifestation of these workplace practices in the talent management. And that is the way I am seeing the way forward. A question that always keeps in my mind is that among all these changes, there would be few things which we will continue. What would be, which is post-COVID, and what is it that we will not continue with, right? And that would be again, which we will not continue with, is another change, right? To adjust to post-COVID kind of an environment. So that's a very interesting journey. I think we all are collectively together in it.
Fantastic. So I think a lot of things already kind of spoken. Prachi mentioned about innovating, investing on a few things, and then Jayanthi mentioned about campus relationship actually kind of made it much more better. Way things handled. And you spoke about the especially culture, right? And Babita, I think interesting thing on the culture point of view, right? And then also I think there are a lot of things will not change now, and then what need to change after post-COVID is an interesting point, right? You mentioned about it, right? So end of the day, with all these points around, we know that actually, we all going through and working from home. Now, I think earlier when somebody gets an approval from an HR that, okay, I got an approval to work from home used to be celebrated. Now, working from office, actually I was just telling before the starting of this, I said, okay, today we are working from office, is kind of celebrated, right? So it's kind of a lot of things changed in our heads. Nothing is changed from a work point of view, but a mindset point of view, a lot of things change, right? So now everybody is working from home. Typical challenges, I'm sure all the corporates are observing it. Just want to hear from all of you, right? Jayanthi put that point, right? So when we started, everybody is happy, we're working from home, we're spending a lot of time with family. Now that's kind of, I'm also kind of, predominantly we also started webinars this time. We hear it from any leader, productivity is actually increased, initially. Then slowly the productivity looks like going back to the way it was, right? Or maybe a little bit reducing. So, again, you all from HR, what all 10 things you guys are doing, maybe 3, 4, 5 things, whatever you're doing it, in terms of managing people aspects of it, also infrastructure, and then, we're hearing a lot of things from an industry, next year, maybe 50% of the workforce is going to continue working from home. A lot of assumptions. Just want to hear on that point. Maybe, Jay, do you want to pick up?
Sure, Murli. Probably one thing which is on top of all our minds, right? And let's probably look at a couple of things which, as an organization, we have been very, very conscious about. So when we started, the first and foremost thing was to get infrastructure through to everyone, because we never, like you rightly said, working from home needed an approval, right? And unless otherwise absolutely essential, it was considered to be a absolute no-no. Being banking, you had enough reasons to say not possible, right? So from that scenario, getting to 100% work from home was a nightmare. And where is infrastructure? Just to go, and so the first phase was really, you transported desktops to a lot of houses, because you didn't have, there was no way we could procure the laptops. The consignments were stuck in airports. So all of that happened. So the first couple of months was completely into getting infrastructure ready. So once infrastructure was ready, for that initial phase, people were all super excited, being at home, being your own boss kind of a feeling. And then slowly we could see that lull set in. People couldn't draw that line between what is work, what is home, how do you take your breaks and all of that. And then the interaction, because especially when you have large teams and when you're running operations shops, that interaction is the crux of the success of the team. So how do you essentially build that? And you are completely dependent on technology, right? Now, Murli, when you started speaking for a minute, you just froze. So what happens? And these things happen all the time, right? End of the day, we are banking on a bandwidth which none of us really expected. So all of those challenges happen. But in spite of that, the very, very conscious focus for us, even from an HR perspective, to the people leaders was, how do you maintain that connect? So earlier, if you were connecting, say, once a fortnight or once a week, how do you make those interactions really, really live, so that from a team management perspective, that interaction continues? So that check-ins with your teams, however large that is, you do have platforms today which can hold hundreds of people, right? It's given those advancements in technology, how do you really get that into your day-to-day life, so that that connect, which is what we are essentially trying to do, is maintain the human connect, though virtually.
The same point where actually, how you guys have taken some few initiatives which made employee connect continuing?
I think my personal, if I can use the word favorite, or probably, I always try to see from that angle, is anything which is done with an intent of employee advocacy. So whether it was well-being program, whether it's collaboration, whether it's digital engagement, whether it's creating agile teams which can work on different kind of projects and so on and so forth, any kind of a program which where the intent is right, you are doing a very authentic communication, and you are also very clear of what you know and what you do not know. You have a clarity in terms of your communication of what's happening and what's probably going to happen. and you bring the people together and get it and just trust the people to do it. You trust on their capabilities. You really don't have to sneak over the shoulder always to see that whether the task is being done or not done, which was kind of a pre-COVID scenario. And many managers and supervisors always used to have that kind of a feeling, being closer to the team and being able to see the team. Trust becoming the forefront of, this entire our ability to manage fatigue, or our ability to manage or probably keep the morale up or productivity up, right? Because that's the humane factor. That's the humane factor, which is the most important. If you trust them that they will do, and they have the clarity of what needs to be done, they will come together and give more than 100%. And of course, you have to enable them. Your technological infrastructure and platforms has to be up to the mark. You have to have the collaboration tools for them to ideate and brainstorm, even if they are virtually. You really have to give them plethora of platforms where they can learn that how do you interact in a virtual platform, because your customer is also virtual. So all these things on the employee advocacy is extremely important, because if there is one group of employees who benefit from that, they will talk about to influence to the another group of employees. HR's work is done, right? So that's I think probably has been the crux of all the initiatives that we have run, either on communication or well-being or anything that needs to steer towards productivity and so on and so forth, and getting them to manage stress and anxiety while in this working environment, apart from the regular platforms, which is your anonymous counseling services, doctor on call, health benefits, and so on and so forth.
Okay, fantastic. So just following that question, Prachi, this is maybe, have you, I come to understand that there is an extra initiatives in managing people increased by the leadership. That's what general sense from people, right? So apart from whatever, I've asked the previous question, if you add on the leadership involvement also, it'll be good. Prachi, want to hear?
Sure, absolutely. So, I think the way we looked at this was, on multiple platforms. So one was, physically, how do we improve the infrastructure at home, mentally, emotionally, and then, with the leadership connects, and definitely that's an area that's increased. So, for us, moving work from home was rather easier because we had all laptops. You could literally do it overnight. But there were other challenges that we faced. So, obviously teams working on large spreadsheets and heavy technology, this thing needed a bigger monitors at home. So we sent across monitors to our staff. We started to receive a lot of feedback around physical fatigue sitting on the chair. So we've sent ergonomic chairs we've enabled them to have ergonomic chairs at home. Then we also realized that because of the differentiation in the infrastructure they had in terms of internet connectivity, there was inequity in the digitization, and that was leading to unequal distribution of work. So a manager would typically reach out to somebody who they consider a safe pair of hand in this time, because they are more comfortable reaching out to them. They have that connect. They know that their technology at home is better. So we've supported all our staff through that as well, in terms of getting better internet connections at home and so on and so forth. So that's on the physical side that we've looked at. Mentally, and as Babita also said, we've our employee assistance program is, we enhanced that. One of the feedback we got was people are, want to do chatting. So we are now introducing chatting through EAP support, because they are at home, they may be surrounded by people, they don't want to pick up a call and have a conversation, and they're more comfortable doing it over a chat. So that's an additional thing that we are looking at. But I agree with, both Jayanthi and Babita made that point, that communication is really the key in this period. How do you keep communicating with your people with your staff. And I think from even the leadership team, the expectation is that, communicate, communicate, and communicate. Share your personal stories. Celebrate, wins, big or small, with the team. Be more vulnerable, and show that side. And I think, when people are able to bring their homes into the videos, and people have shared pictures of their kids, and they've shared pictures of their pets and what they're cooking, and it's brought a lot of feeling of being one team together, which has also really helped in fostering that relationship, especially in an environment where physical presence cannot it's not possible. So those are some of the things where we've supported.
Just wanted to hear from you on the, a point of IR, HR, and again, coming back to real, I think, talking about people, their issues and mental health and all this stuff coming back. So just wanted to hear, is that really happening for a lot of good?
It's a loaded question. So I think this question is also coming considering there is such an accelerated advent of technology, and there is so much of a conversation happening that how technology is influencing work and workplace, right? And eventually the workforce. But one thing, and people are talking about adoption of technology, people are talking about transformation, people are talking about, digitally how you can be more savvy, your skills are also evolving around it.
Correct.
But while doing so, in all this, technology without human touch, just imagine, even if this conversation that is happening, without the human touch, is it possible? Right? So I always question the basic question itself, if it is coming that, will the human touch go away? That is one thing which is given. And in human resource, I think the word human is now much more in dominance than anything else, even if it's in a technologically oriented world that we are getting into. A very classic example I'll give. There used to be roles called data analyst, right? There used to be roles called, and they still exist. Now, data analysts, they will look at the data, they analyze the data, and they give you the insights. But do you just make a very good decision based on insights, or do you make the decision when there is a person in front of you talking the story behind that data? And that revealing the various aspects of what that data is talking about, and thus enabling your decision. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect, if you say, and that's my personal example, I'll tell you, I needed a doctor's appointment, and obviously all doctors are now giving online appointments, right? So I asked and that's my general physician, and I asked that, would you be doing online consultation? And he said, you know what, online consultation, but kind of challenges you are saying will not serve. You please take all precautions and walk up to my chamber. And it has to be, face-to-face conversation, but just ensure that your safety gears are up. So the human part, even in human resources, are, it just cannot go away. It will transform into a quasi model where the human aspect is much more evolved. It's rather than transactional, and that's the crux of the industrial revolution 4.0, which we are sitting on today, right? And that's the journey we have traversed in so many years, and we will continue to do that. Even if this conversation we are having 5 years from now, 10 years, 15 years from now, we will still say yes, that human touch is required. We are social animal. Can't avoid of that.
Fantastic. That's a good news for a lot of HR folks, because when AI came in, everybody started talking about the first jobs are going to go is HR, and some level of recruiting teams. First level recruiters are going to lose the jobs and all stuff. But I think there's a lot of encouraging words, Babita. This really helped a lot of people. So Jayanthi, just back to you. So just wanted to hear from you. Okay. So Okay, so I think Prachi just wanted to hear on the same topic, right? Is that again? I'm sure mostly a kind of repeated thing, but just wanted to hear on the same thing, right? IR, HR, and is that important? Suddenly focus towards an HR now back again.
Yeah, so really my answer would also would not be significantly different from Babita's, because really I don't think that it ever went away or can go away. I think just like when the computers were first introduced, people thought that this is going to change the lives or take away their jobs and all of that. Just like that, new jobs were created
Correct.
more than earlier taken away. Like that, I don't think you can take human out of the human interaction, because at the end of the day, people do business with people, people work for people, and that human element can never be replaced completely. It can be aided. So absolutely. And small example, we used to have, every team used to do their own birthday celebrations at home, and that sort of, you get a cake and you get the team together, and people will make a song and dance of it. But that was really getting everyone together. So we sort of try to create such opportunities. But now we are using technology to, if there are people who may not remember birthdays, can we send a birthday wish to the individual and their managers, so that it's not forgotten just because you're not physically together. That's not so. Again, leveraging technology, but to enable human interaction rather than inspire.
Fantastic, fantastic. So on the same lines, right? Working from home, we spoke about it, and then just wanted to maybe now Babita, over to you was. So this gig economy, gig workers, and people talk about actually, right? The working work from home increased, make us the people we required only from people from Chennai location for Chennai, Bangalore people for Bangalore. Right now almost like all banks are hitting only those 3-4 major cities to bring people from. Have you guys now kind of opened up all over India to hire and then make people work from anywhere and out of India? Is that becoming a point now?
So I think one thing that is changing for business, and I believe it is very true in financial services and in banking, is earlier there were a lot of skills and there was a lot of importance on a particular skill to be hired from a particular location, because that's where you get the talent.
Correct.
So if you are not physically present as an office infrastructure in that location, then then the questions around whether the candidates will relocate or not relocate, and so on and so forth. So there was a need of the organization for people to join in the organization where the organization infrastructure is, and there was also a requirement for the candidate to really relocate. Now look at the situation, right? I won't say this true for all roles, but maximum roles. This now does not hold true. And I do hear there are a lot of leadership roles which are now virtual and remote roles. I was looking at some of the statistics that LinkedIn was kind of sharing with me, where how many percentage of jobs today are being posted as remote jobs. How many organizations are really saying this is a remote working? Doesn't matter which location, which country you are, as long as you have the right skill set and this is an aspirational job for you, and you please apply. And that is probably true across many organizations. So that is one change. What it leads to is that you are really deepening and you are expanding the talent network that you use to operate.
Correct.
So if I have a technologist need, and I can get that person to work from, that person I'm going to get in Bangalore, and I'm not going to get it in Bombay. Today, I think I won't feel that I really should be, hiring that person or not, because whether the person will relocate, I can still, onboard the person, and person can support from Bangalore itself. So that's the first big shift. And this is prominent in leadership roles as well. The second part in this whole remote working is growing understanding in the talent community as well, that what has changed or shifted from the expectation of employers point of view, because work is changing, your roles are changing, you need to demonstrate very different behaviors and skill if you're going to work on remote, right? So and so forth, and we can talk more about it. But that's an immense shift that Murli, I would see, and I think it is already happening for maximum roles. Few roles may not be, but maximum amount of roles. Second thing is, there are certain roles which were important earlier also, but now have come into dominance, right? For example, risk roles, analytics roles,
Correct.
tech roles. They were there earlier as well, specifically risk roles, right? But now just imagine, because you have to be so vigilant on your operational people risk, that those roles are very, very prominent and important, which means there is an emerging trend in terms of the way roles are morphing. And that is also true for some roles which are going to become obsolete or redundant, right? So these three are the big changes that that is happening today, and I think this will continue. This will continue in terms of the trend, because business models are changing, so they need very different talent.
So Prachi, I think I know you mentioned about a little bit differently about gig workers, but just want to understand right now, you guys open where somebody says that I'll work from maybe Coimbatore, but I will, maybe work for a long time here, at least a year, and then relocate it and all. Is that making you people to open today? I think, maybe especially Prachi, uh, you guys are open for people to look or, apply from anywhere in India, but work from home, not only on the COVID times and then maybe post that.
Sure. So, Marine, the way we have, that I think the acceptance is coming that the new style of working will not be all in office. It will not, we are not going to go back to doing the things when things, normalize, because the new normal will be very different from what we
Right.
had before. And hybrid style of working and hybrid models are definitely something that are being adopted and will continue to be adopted. So it will be, function of few people working from office and few people working remotely. Working flexibly is something that as an organization we have always supported, which is why we had, a bulk of our staff who could switch to that model overnight. Um, as a long-term strategy, hybrid working is definitely something that we will be adopting across all our offices. And it definitely opens up the opportunity to expand the talent market and not just be restricted in the cities that you mentioned. But I think the cultural change that is required to accept something like that may take longer. And for the hiring managers and the leaders to open up and say, I'm fine if I never see the face of this employee, or I'm fine if they are always on WebEx and video conferencing. That will take some time, but I don't think that that is that will not happen. So I think it is inevitable over a period of time, but how much time it will take to get there, we at this stage cannot predict.
Correct. I think, yeah,
I
there's
can add to what Prachi is saying, since we're talking about gig.
correct.
And gig means short term, gig means project based, gig means for a particular length, right? So it's a very different kind of a remote working. And tomorrow, if everything opens up, your gig could be operating from your office as well. It's just the time period which is defining.
Correct.
I think that the challenges that I see, apart from culture, which is a very, very vital point that Prachi made, also, contractual agreement. And the moment you say gig workers, which means entire globe is your talent pool, and then you have labor laws cutting across countries that you need to be careful about. Second is a gig worker is working on multi-company assignment. So people generally feel challenged about getting time from the gig workers. So the supervisors constantly think that will they finish it on time. The third part is the gig worker, since it can work with multiple companies, what happens is that they also have to abide by different kind of a work into different tools. So if I'm working as a gig worker with two organizations, one organization works MS Teams and another organization is another platform, I have to toggle between the two platforms. So that's the challenge at the gig side of it. So there are multiple aspects to it. However, the way org models are changing, it's leading to a lot of roles being outsourced, which is infusing to the skill sets of the gig workers, right? A lot of functions are getting outsourced, right? So which is also leading to infusion to the gig workers, which is a good for the gig economy as it is expanding. But there are some ifs and buts which needs to be sorted out before one can say that, you know, I can adopt this model really in a this model can fit into my overall talent strategy.
Correct.
So that's I think additional points I wanted.
Correct. I think, well said, Babita. I think, I'm also kind of hearing from large services companies in India. They're talking to each other where they maintain a huge bench. In that bench, they wanted to kind of support each other if they can, kind of loan these number of people for the other services company for a 3 months to 6 months and work around it. And I'm kind of hearing from really large firms in India who is actually talking this language. Maybe some of the HCLs and Wipros and Infis are actually kind of discussing each other at some level, which I could kind of hear from here and there, not formal, but that's kind of happening around it, right? So anyway, I was talking about gig and the skills and all stuff. Any specific skills? Because we have close to about 130, 140 odd people watching us. I'm sure everybody wanted to work with banks. Any specific skills, which you feel that, there's a change happened because of this reason or generally coming up in future?
So one thing that is emerging is that be it any functional area, whether it's sales, operations, customer service, contact centers, these roles, there are two things which gets added to these roles. One is how digitally savvy you are. So your ability to really understand technology and work with technology. That is the first one. And then second is, do you bring that analytical and critical thinking and logical thinking bent of mind? Can you work with data as well, right? These are two things. Even in the senior roles, right? I was reading somewhere how CFO role is morphing and what today's CFO looks so different than a CFO of just even a year back, probably, right? Where traditionally you tick the box into all the functional aspects of it, but you are looking for somebody who can drive projects, who can drive technological innovation, who can work through systems, process re-engineering, so on and so forth. Apart from that, in banking, security is a big one. Because what happens with the banking, because it is a regulated environment and you are working with a lot of confidential data, whether it's employee or customers. Security, since it is coming into the forefront and it's everybody is discovering. So your cloud security and all your technology platforms are into cloud, right? On-premise are very, very nice. So your cloud security roles, cyber security roles, cloud computing roles. Then your data is the second thing, which is very important. So data engineers, analysts, all those data related roles, those are emerging and they will not necessarily be confined to a technology organization. Even banking organizations are going to jump into and hire a lot. The third is the enterprise functions, which are like risk, marketing, human resources. They would need now different skill sets. And in that skill sets, while functional acumen is fine, but your ability to change that functional acumen adaptive to the new way of working is something which would be important. And overall, I think some of the things which are being talked about, or we have been learning through this crisis, is that your agility, your learnability, your emotional intelligence, your ability to really think through, your resilience. So managing ambiguity. These things will come into foray in the interviewer's mind or the business mind when they are looking at a talent. And lastly, even if you are a specialist, you really need to widen the scope of your knowledge across many functions. It's a now quasi role of generalist versus and generalist and specialist too, because talent models are now evolving. Talent models are no more that, okay, you are a talent acquisition person and you are a calm person and you are a rewards person. You need to know probably everything. You may not go very deep, but a broader landscape needs to be, at the back of your palm, because your talent models now will, today you have to work on a project which requires an understanding of rewards. So those are the shifts that, you can see when it comes to the skills part.
No, I think it's just a fantastic point, right? I think, you rightly mentioned, right? In terms of the diversity workforce, especially gender diversity, women especially, right? When they go for a maternity or spouse move to a different location because of various reasons, women stop working because the husband's job is bigger than her job, whatever reasons it is. So there is X number of percentage of women stop working because of the location constraint. I think this really helps a lot more. Once this opens up, women can work from anywhere. I think praying kind of looking at future, companies can actually come back and say that if a woman can work from anywhere, maybe men required to come to office kind of policies should come on, right? So, yeah, that makes it, forget about gender diversity kind of thing, but at least there's an employable workforce increases automatically, right? That's the important piece which we're looking at it, right? So because we spoke about diversity and inclusion kind of a thing, it's a favorite topic for me, being a Shenzyn, known for diversity workforce improvement platform. So just want to understand, is that you know is the COVID hopefully not changed any of your concentration of inclusivity and diversity as a part of large KRA for organizations, if not changed? Maybe I want to hear from Prachi.
Sure, Mali. So I think, what I feel is that, of course, inclusion and diversity both were very important in the past. But I think this time has made us realize that we all may be in the same storm, but we are definitely not in the same boat. So even with our own staff, we have had, you know, uh, sort of different people are facing it differently. There are people who have young kids at home who are in homeschool. There are others who are in a primary carer responsibility, perhaps. Uh, there are third who may be feeling isolation because they are stuck alone in a house and really don't have people to talk to. So I think that has made us a bit more conscious and appreciative of individual challenges that people face. And that's why it's becoming even more important to look at inclusion before diversity. And that, I think, is something that we have focused extensively in these times. We have launched our returnship program. That's our flagship program. But interestingly, and since you mentioned earlier that that is usually targeted towards women who have taken a career break, this year about 40% of our applications so far have been from male candidates. So this is the first time, and we have been conscious to have it a gender neutral program. While most of the applications that we receive were from women in the past, this year the trend seems to have changed. So that is a program that we continue with. Not being in office also gave us an opportunity to look at, other than gender diversity, we had been looking to hire people with disability for some time, and we did a audit of our infrastructure to see if that's supportive, and there were a few challenges that we were working through, but really working remotely opened up that entire talent availability of market for us, that we are now able to look at people with disability who may not necessarily have to come into our office if our infrastructure is not ready to support that. So we are no longer limited to doing that. In this period, interestingly, we've also launched our Pride ENG, which is targeted towards our LGBTQI community. And we are doing a number of activities around increased benefits for that community, hiring and earmarking certain roles so that we are able to hire people with that background. And so definitely, I don't think that the focus has reduced. On the contrary, I think the focus has increased and enhanced in this period.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. So Babita, any points on that? Because we spoke a lot of times and just want to hear from you on what's your focus on the diversity, ideal inclusion and diversity point of view.
Sure. Um, for me, inclusion is really, ability to bring your authentic self, and it is gender agnostic. Yes, women have different challenges at home, right now, because there is an expectation for them to manage family along with work and so on and so forth. That adds to their stress. But what exactly inclusion is, right? Inclusion is when you feel that you are doing something which is, you're value adding to the organization. You feel you are appreciated. You feel your work is whatever level at which you are working, but it has of some value. Now, what we are talking is, one realization in this crisis is that it has to be a purpose-led organization. Now, purpose gives you those kind of feeling, and that comes in when you are, demonstrating inclusive behaviors in the work environment. And this is more important when you are in a virtual environment, because in a virtual environment, I think it's important to know how you respect others when you are on video, right? Vis-a-vis in person. You should know that when you are in a video conference, how do you allow others to speak? How do you, there are different personality types on the video. Some people are also shy off of the video. How are you encouraging them to speak up? So there are many manifestations of inclusion which comes into play. And one thing is very important, and I was listening about this somewhere, and it resonated really well with me, is that when people are working from home, right, they also have a lot of time to think, observe, right? Which means they can truly see your intent. So if you are not true to your intent while driving inclusion, whether you are driving well-being, whether you are driving communication, collaboration, learning, or any other parameters for that, if the intent is, is not coming out of what you are doing, people really can see it. So one of the leadership model that I was looking through, where one aspect, there are three clocks to that model, and one model is, can you see me, right? It's a humility leadership model, and the one aspect of that leader is, an expectation from the leader is, can you see me? And that's what even employees are today, saying, can you see me? Do you know who I am? And they are able to truly connect to it. And all these put together really amplify all your engagement efforts, all your efforts towards, enablement at workplace and workforce, and finally leading to productivity. So everything is all linked. So inclusion is something which you cannot say that just because it's crisis and hence it needs to be addressed later. I think it has come into a big notice to the CEOs and the CXO group that this is something which is important, because everybody is saying the same thing. It is, they are talking, if you're talking about trust, empathy, openness, transparency, these are all manifestations of inclusion some way or other, right? So I think it has taken a prominence, and it's gonna grow more and more, if we need to be successful at the work.
I think it's fantastic. It's a good news to hear, because IND activities, a couple of years back, maybe a last year onward, before even that, it become used to be like, you have a, it's a good to have kind of a game, right? It's never used to be like it used to be
It
a
used to be like a checklist.
correct, right? So now it is becoming like a mandatory because it made, becoming like that. So, again, Jayanthi, just want to hear from you on your point of view also. I think, on the inclusivity and diversity point.
I think very aligned view, Murali, to Babita and Prachi. It's always been important, and probably it's taken a prominence like never before. So there is absolutely no reduction in the importance of both these aspects, diversity and inclusion, and probably one aspect which we are stressing on more than ever before is how do you get rid of that unconscious bias?
Correct.
Yeah, a lot of times there are biases, and as a result, that becomes a roadblock for becoming an inclusive organization, is because people are just not conscious about it. So very unconsciously, there are a lot of biases which are built into the way we operate. So how do you consciously ensure that those unconscious biases don't get in the way of we as an organization and the society at large? I think that
Okay.
have I lost you?
Sure, Jayanthi. I think, yeah, we kind of heard almost like 90% of what you mentioned, right? So I think that's largely, Babita and Pachi, Jayanthi, we have it. And then, so, we kind of open for the audience to their questions. I have already received a couple of questions, but just, maybe wait for a couple of minutes before I start asking those questions which are already posted by the audience. Audience, it's over to you. If you can have any specific questions
Hello?
to the leaders, please go ahead and ask questions. Yeah, Jayanthi, please go ahead. Okay, still, I think it's not. So Babita, there's one question came. I think, maybe I'll start with you. So there is a person, Sushmita, has kind of written to us saying that there's a lot of stress and anxiety among business and our sales employees regarding this 24/7 work stress. Maybe I think her company has that lot of work in the evening kind of a thing. So there is a stress on the revenue generation, and what kind of remedies or steps HR is taking to address these issues. It's a little generic, but if that case comes to
Sure.
you, what kind?
So, whether it's sales or any other function, probably everybody is kind of in the same boat, right? Everybody has cost pressures. Everybody has, are looking at different kind of business models because your consumer behavior is so unpredictable right now. We all are aware of, how economy is moving forward. Now, obviously, that adds to the stress. It's the question of life and livelihood, which is a famous discussion that constantly we keep having around it. But there are ways to handle it, and it goes two-way. While there are efforts that an organization would do, but there are efforts that an individuals also have to do and bring other employees together in that effort. I know there are, there are a couple of things one can really look at. Look at the employee segmentation, even if within the sales, that who are feeling the burnout and what actually is the reason of the burnout. Is it really improper workload that is being given, or is it the inability to think through how to divide their day in terms of the way they are approaching the work? Is it the technology which is not enabled enough? Is if they have to find newer markets, are they trained enough to find newer markets? Is it the issue around celebration, recognition? So try to work some virtual recognition on the spot. Don't wait to try to create a big program and launch. Just do it. I mean, Nike's slogan just works very fine right now, that just do it if you need to recognize people. Is it communication? Do they have a clarity of what needs to be achieved and how needs to be achieved, and by when? What are the challenges? Are they able to speak freely about the challenges? Create these avenues. So first, do a little bit of a quick diagnostic in terms of employee segmentation, what the issues are, and then quickly design the solution, because quick action is the mantra today. You can't, it's not pre-COVID days that you take 1 month, 2 months to design a framework, get a buy-in, and then launch. No, the issue, this is the best way to solve it. Just, create this and, do it for the employees, and, and then take a pulse check that yes, the programs are well received and they are finding a remedy out of it. It would also require a lot of conversation with the leadership, business leadership. They should also be aware of that. If there is a stress level, what are they thinking about? Where is it coming from and why it is coming from? How much more they can be engaged? Because today, the nucleus of engagement is dialogue. The more dialogue you do, right, the better engaged person you have in front of the person, in front of you. So these are some of the solutions that I can advise and recommend.
So one more kind of question came in. So we have a batch of in the Shenzyn active kind of training closed about some 20,000-30,000 odd 2021 batch people. So there are a few of them actually kind of sent a text to us saying that what do they need to learn specially to actually get an opportunities in banking sector? So I think it's very maybe generic, but what skills they need to actually get trained or learn? Maybe start from Prachi. You want to just pick this up?
Sure. Today, I think none of these skills are new or any less prominent earlier, but I think in these times they have become even more so, and more than the technical skills, which would obviously depend on the academic background and the domain that they had worked in earlier. Is I think to survive and to grow in these trying times, I think there are 3 skills that I think are going to become more important. One is ability to work, to operate, as well as lead teams in a hybrid style of working, because that's definitely going to come. How do you engage with teams both when you are working from office, but as well as working remotely? How do you make them feel included? How is it that that one lone person who's working remotely is not feeling left out in a meeting just because they're on a video call, whereas all others are in the room? So I think that is one aspect and one important skill. The second, which has again become very, very important, is resilience. And resilience, by definition, is ability to bounce back from adversity, to respond positively, and to grow from challenges. And I think that's one skill that was never as important as it is today for anyone. And again, a lot of research and statistics show that people who have a more positive outlook in life are able to bounce back much faster in these trying times. So I think that's one competency, one skill set that I feel that needs to be nurtured and grown within the organizations. And the third that I cannot emphasize enough is communication. Communication is the bedrock of whether you communicating it with your managers, or you're communicating with your colleagues or your teams, your clients. I think that is really where one skill that's very important. And with communication comes the listening skill, which is equally important, that you listen to your clients and your stakeholders, and create the best product or the solution that is required. I think these three skills, I think, are more important, irrespective of the industry and the role that you play in that.
Jayanthi, welcome back. So the question is actually from 2021 batch of grads. What are the couple of things you look for when you're hiring? That's the kind of question came out. You want to pick up? Looks like she's missed out again. So, Babita, I think the same question. Can you please give us some inputs on that?
Sure. I think two things which would be important. One is agility. Second is learnability. You would be required to learn everything on the earth, on the sun, and be open to that. Probably gone are the days of having favorites in the subjects. So be curious, and you need to be agile, because one has to work in very agile work teams. So these are very project-based work. You get into one project, you quickly finish it off, and that agility is even demonstrated the way you manage the project, move into the next project. So these two are the most critical one, irrespective of the functional stream that you come up with. That's what I'll say.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of lag, Jayanthi. So maybe our last question which came up, Suprita Sinha's.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes, Jayanthi, you can speak, yes.
Sure. What's the question, Murali?
So just a couple of inputs for 2021 batch grads. Anything specific things they need to learn, because the COVID and all hitting and all, right? So just wanted the kind of asking what kind of inputs you have.
Yeah. I guess I could hear Babita and Prachi touching on the question. So I think definitely agility and continuous learning, Murali. There is no end to that. And given the pace at which things are changing today, I think it's just about keeping yourself relevant to the current one pass out. So by the time they leave college and hit the organizations, a lot would have changed. So how do you keep yourself absolutely relevant? I think that is probably, it's become the most important thing for this generation, which is very different from a lot of previous generations. Any technology, as an example, at least used to stay for a couple of months or maybe a couple of years. Today it is, the validity is probably, in many occasions, it could just be weeks. So how do you keep yourself completely adapt to what is changing? So that means you should have a mindset to keep learning.
Correct.
And make use of every possible opportunity to do so. A lot of organizations support that, but then I don't think it is the organization's requirement. It is up to each of us to ensure that that journey of learning continues. So I think that's the most important suggestion I would give to all the new batches.
Fantastic. That's
and Murali, I'd just like to add last thing in that, especially for freshers, I feel that think long term, have a little bit of patience. Don't try to do everything at one go. If they're starting a career now, it's a long career spanning many decades, and it's not, and the success is not achieved overnight. It takes a lot of hard work, time, and effort to do all of that. So be ready to invest in themselves, and not be in a hurry to just get the next level and the next hike and the and so on and so forth. So I think patience is very, very important.
So because 2021 batch is going to really in a state where there's a 2020 batch is going to kind of compete because they miss out this year, and 2021 batch is going to come. So the availability of right workforce is going to increase. So, it's kind of not so easy for, over the period of time. Hopefully, I think market goes up drastically so that both, branches should actually get the right jobs, right? So there is one interesting question. Maybe Babita, I wanted to take this up. So what is your take on retail branch banking? I don't know how much you all will be able to answer this, but I think it's interesting. Retail branch banking with respect to remote working, as that is still a challenge in India in spite of digital initiatives, and in rural branches, it's a big challenge, right? You know, just what's your take on that, Babita?
That's truly an interesting question and realistic question, actually, if you ask me. However much the program on Digital India that has been done by the government over the last couple of years, and I think there the focus one of the focus area is rurals, but still a lot more to do. And it depends on really the quantum of business that is, in that revenue chart where this rural branch banking is really coming in, and how the technology support has been put in. Depending on also the social infrastructure that is available in the rural. So that all put together make this challenge quite amplified. And it is true. It is pretty true. And I guess the one way people are trying to cope is really phones rather than videos and all, because of the infrastructure bit of it, and they're trying to work through that, and try and see how much more engagement that they can do, as much as connectivity that they can do, as much of discussion that they can do, and bring and connect them to the larger population who are there in the metro city. Do I have a very definitive answer to this? No, because it's a known challenge, and it's a challenge which collectively organization, government, us, everybody together has to kind of put together. But also look at this whole campaign around Make in India. Look at this whole campaign around, focus on being local. Look at this whole campaign around Atmanirbhar and all that kind of stuff, right? So there is a lot of localization focus, and if you're 70% of that is in rural, and I am sure that's catching a lot of people's attention, including business, economy, and politicians put together to see what can be done over there. You have I think there is funding which exclusively works for startups which are coming from rural places, right? So these kind of focus will come, but is it going to give us a solution right away, or is it going to get solved in day one? Probably no. But these discussions are important. These conversations are important, so that there is enough noise in the society that focus goes there, because you can't ignore that, which is a larger, which constitutes 70% of your entire economy.
So I think maybe Jayanthi can add that point on this, right? Because Standard Chartered has a lot more retail banking also in India. So how are you guys handling this piece, which is asked by her?
I think I would agree to what Babita said, Murali, because do we really have all the answers today? We really don't have. Yeah, it is definitely evolving now. Can rural India adapt at the same pace like all of us adapted to it? Definitely not. There are a number of challenges which are inherent in our society before we can, reach anywhere near that optimum, level of service, especially from a rural banking perspective. But I think with all that is happening around in the economy, it only will get better. And the adaptation of the technology and everything that is available in the urban places, slowly moving into the rural. And over a period of time, we will see a change. Do we have a solution and an answer as we speak? Definitely not. And that will remain a challenge. I don't think we can negate that. That's a very fair question. and it remains a challenge, but then I think there is some light at the end of the tunnel. So we are definitely in the right direction, at least, and it's a matter of time that it will kind of, catch up. So that's
Fantastic. Prachi, I know this question is not relevant to your bank, so I'm kind of pass it on not to get that. So, fantastic. Thank you very much for, the session. I think we kind of almost like on dot and we're trying to look at it. And before we kind of close the session, anything from, wanted to hear some notes from each of you. Anything you want to tell the audience?
I think only, first of all, of course, enjoyed the conversation a lot. Loved the question posted by Suprita Sinha, I guess, because these are all thought-provoking questions, and I think we are having, we are talking about right things which matters today, things which is going to matter tomorrow as well. I just hope the audience has taken some key takeaways. It helps them in their career journey or the way they are managing themselves. That is extremely important. When I listen to forums like this, I think apart from key takeaways, I also really share the energy and enthusiasm which we have, optimism which we have to keep igniting in ourselves, right, irrespective of wherever we are in our professional career journey, because that will keep us going through this crisis and also post this crisis as well. So stay focused in your learning journey, be curious, keep listening, learning things, listening to things, learn variety, right? Even if you don't like it, force yourself to read through it and you will create a liking towards it. And that's important today. Stand for each other, right? Pay forward is a very big concept, which is very near to my heart. Stand for each other. If one person gets help, help another person. This is the time to show solidarity of the spirit of the human being. And I guess we all connecting together in this forum is one of the sign of it. And thank you, Murli, for really creating this forum.
Thank you very much. Prachi?
Yeah. Only, same, I think I've really enjoyed being on the panel and also hearing the other panelists and yourself. I think it's been a learning opportunity for me. I have a number of takeaways from this session, so I hope everyone had something to learn and be able to implement. So thank you so much for giving this opportunity once again.
Thank you, both of you. Jayanthi, just want to hear from you. Jayanthi, you there?
just heard of these sessions. I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So these sessions are always two-way learnings, right? It's never the audience hearing us and taking it back with them. These questions sometimes make us think. So that's the way it's always been for me. So some fantastic questions. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I guess my only message to everyone who is here at their session is, I think this pandemic has kind of given an opportunity for all of us to probably do things which we've never ever done in life. So it is opening up a lot of new opportunities, things we thought was impossible. So that's the way I would urge each one of us to look at it. And it's a brilliant opportunity to think completely out of the box. So the most vackiest idea
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, could just sell like hotcakes now. So that's probably the hat which I would like. I've started wearing it for myself, and I really urge everyone to probably just give a go at that.
Sure, sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Murali.
Thank you very much, Jayanthi. Thank you very much. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day to all of you.
Thank you. Have a great,
Thank you.
great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye bye.